Hi again, Copycat in Algebra 2. We're still on 9.4, evaluating the 6 trig functions. This is example 2. A little harder because it's not quite, it's a little more abstract. They're not giving you a visual. So sometimes that makes it a little harder when they don't have a picture or something showing you where things are at and things like that. So let's see what we got. So this one is giving you the sine function. It's saying sine theta is 4/5. So they are giving you a little bit of information, but like a puzzle, they want you to find the rest of the puzzle pieces. And then they also have this other piece here that's kind of a new piece, and you might sit here thinking like, what is that for? What's the purpose for it? Then they tell you this. They say theta is between, remember, whenever they have these two inequality symbols like that, it's just saying it's between, it's sandwiched between. So they're telling you that your angle is sandwiched between pi/2 and pi. And so why is that important? Because that's actually telling you what quadrant it is in. So think about it. Where is pi/2 and pi? What quadrant does that fall between? Might even want to go grab your unit circle again real quick just to kind of look at it. So here is pi/2 right up here, and pi is over here on this side. So really, it's whatever triangle you're drawing is actually happening over here in the second quadrant. Okay, and so they're just telling you that because that tells you what kind of sign it'll have. In the second quadrant, the x values are negative, but the y values are positive. And so just kind of keep that in mind as we go through these other examples. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a quick visual. We're going to label what we know and go from there. All right, so what I know right now. We just found out that our angle, so remember you have your unit circle, we just found out that whatever triangle we're drawing is here in the second quadrant somewhere. So it doesn't really matter, this is just a visual aid to help you. So let's just go ahead and draw ourselves a right triangle there in that second quadrant, okay? So here's where your triangle's at. Now, do you have any information? You technically do, but it's kind of hard for you to find it, so let's go back and think about what do we have. You have this right here. They gave you the sine value. So let's go ahead and label what they are giving us. So sine theta is 4/5. Go back to your function and say, well, what is sine? Remember, sine is telling you the y coordinate and the r coordinate. So let's label it. This is the y coordinate right here, your 4, and it's divided by r, so this is your r coordinate. So you have your y value and you have your r value. So we can actually go ahead and label that now on your triangle. So let me go ahead and blow up the triangle a little bit. So it's kind of small here, but let's extend this so it's nice and big and you can see it clearly. Okay? All right, so remember, y. Y goes up and down. So you technically know that distance there, the y value. So you know that this is 4. I'm going to go ahead and write y equals 4. That's our y distance there. And then r. R is the radius. R is like your hypotenuse. That's the long side. So they gave you that one as well. So this is 5. That's your r. So technically what you're missing here on this one is you're missing the x value. They're not telling you what that is. So going back to those little shortcuts I mentioned about Pythagorean theorem, think about what you're going to do in terms of Pythagorean theorem. Okay, are you going to square them and add them or square them and subtract them? This is why I gave you a little tiny recap of Pythagorean theorem, because this is where a lot of students go wrong. I already have the long side. I'm trying to find a leg. So going back to those shortcuts, if you have the long side, you're not going to square them and add them. You're going to square them and subtract them. So that's the work we got to do here. So I'm going to go ahead and do this underneath the board here. So let's go ahead and go back to Pythagorean theorem. Now, when you do this, always start with your longer side, because when you're subtracting, you want to make sure you don't end up with any negatives. So my longer side, obviously, is this one right here. So here we go. I'm going to do my 5 squared minus my other side, 4 squared equals, and I'm missing this side here, so that's going to be x squared. Again, minus, because we already have the long side, we're looking for that shorter side, so this is why it's a -1. All right, so you type this into your calculator right there. That's going to end up giving you 9. Okay, and again, watch out, another common mistake that students tend to make when they're doing all these crazy calculations is they just kind of forget. They think, oh, I got 9, so 9's my answer, right? No, it's Pythagorean theorem. You always have to square root your final answer there because you're trying to find the square. You don't want the square, you just want x. So to get rid of that square, you got to square root both sides. All right, so now you know that x is 3. All right, so coming back over here, let me go ahead and write x equals 3. Now, a little bit of a problem here, and this is why these are a little tough. Remember how we decided the quadrant it was in? We said, oh, it's in the second quadrant. Well, you gotta think about all the signs that go around here. Yeah, you have an x value and a y value, but think about the signs. One of these coordinates, x or y, is negative in that quadrant. And if you look at what I just wrote on the board, everything here is positive. There's something wrong with one of the signs. So think about it for just a second. If you're in this quadrant right here, which one has the negative sign? Is it the x value? Is the x value negative in the second quadrant? Or is it the y value that's negative in the second quadrant? Okay? Obviously, I think of it like this. You know, x goes side to side, right? So you didn't go forward from the center, you went backwards. So the negative side was the x side. And so even though we got x equals 3 from this work, which is great, us, have to stop and think, oh wait, I've got to make this a negative x value because it is in the second quadrant. And in the second quadrant, all the x's are always negative. That is going to be tough to remember. So if you guys do make mistakes, I would suggest go back to where your triangle was drawn, the section it was in, and ask yourself, wait, what should have been negative there? Something should have been negative. The only quadrant that you're going to have where there's not going to be any negative values is the first quadrant, because everything is positive in the first quadrant. But all these other quadrants, you're going to have to really watch out for the signs. All right, so we have everything we need. So I'm going to go ahead and do what I did on the last example. I'm going to write all 6 trig functions here, and we're going to go ahead and find all 6 using our information. All right, so let's start off with sine, or actually cosine, my bad. Keep it in order, right? Cosine. All right, so we got cosine theta, and remember over here, cosine theta is the x value over the r side. So so here we go, x is negative 3, and my r is 5. So our fraction is going to be negative 3 over 5. That's my cosine. Okay, let's go ahead and go over to the sine value. Now this one, technically, we already knew this one. I mean, we can get it off of our picture here, but technically they told us sine. So I'm just going to go use my picture because I got a great picture anyways. So sine is y over r. I already knew my y was 4, and I know my r is 5, so this is 4 over 5. Which is exactly what they told me it was, so you should be confident that your stuff is working out right here, right? All right, and then the last one, there's tangent. So tangent theta, tangent is y over x. So y is 4, x is negative 3, so this is going to be negative 4 over 3. FYI, if you've noticed, I've been putting the negative signs in front of the whole fraction. I think it just makes things easier for you guys. That way you don't feel like something specific is negative. It's the whole fraction that's negative. All right, so we got our 3 basic trig functions. Now let's go ahead and write the other 3. Now remember, I told you these are super easy. Also keep in mind, this is easy. It's cosine. So if it starts with a C, the next one starts with an S. So it's the secant one. Just a little trick to remember. You know, it's not just C and C. It's C then S, S then C. All right, and it's flipped. So instead of being negative 3/5, it's going to be negative 5/3. Negative 5/3. There's we call it the reciprocal, because what it did is it flipped the answer, right? All right, and this one's sine. So sine starts with S, so its reciprocal is going to start with C. So this is cosecant. Cosecant starts with a C, CSC. All right, and the same thing, it's reciprocating it, so instead of 4/5, it's going to be 5/4. All right, and then the last one is tangent. I told you, you can remember this one. It's the only one that has T's in it, tangent and cotangent. So these ones are going to be cotangent. Same thing, it's still negative, but you're going to flip that 4/3. It's going to be negative 3/4. There you go, all 6 trig functions again. Only challenge here was, again, like I said, really watch out for these negatives. Yeah, you might calculate your value, your X, your Y, your R, whatever it is, but you always got to stop and ask yourself, okay, what quadrant is it in? That's why they're giving you this. You should ask, why is that there? It's there to say, hey, this is in the second quadrant, and in the second quadrant, all of the X's are negative. In the third quadrant here, everything in the third quadrant, you know, you could even go through and make your signs. This is negative, positive. This one here is negative, negative. And this one over here is positive, negative. So you really got to watch out for those signs that are there, because that could throw off your answers when you're done with your problem. Easy fix to make once you realize if you did something wrong, but definitely something that will throw off your answers if you're not paying attention to those signs. All right, Algebra 2, good luck with it. And like I said, always use a paper, pencil, and have that Desmos calculator ready to go. Good luck.